Welcome back. In the previous step, we set the user on authentication into session storage, and we created a method to check if a user is logged in or not. What we have also done is we made a couple of console logs. That's not really good, so let's comment these out so that the logs don't disturb us. We made sure that everything is working fine, so the logs are not really needed anymore. Now, what we want to do is we would want to enable and disable menu items based on is user logged in or not. So I would want to enable these links based on user login. How can I do that? Think about it. If user has logged in, I would want to show different links. If user has not logged in, I would want to use different links. Pause the video in here, try and think about it before you would proceed to look at the solution. What we have in here is the menu component. Menu component defines what? The menu HTML. So menu.component.html. So before we show these links, I would need to check if user has logged in or not. How can I do that? Think about it. It should be easy, right? So let's go to menu.component.ts and first add in our authentication service. We need to check whether somebody is logged in or not. So we need the authentication service, right? So let's wire it in. I'll say private authentication, hard-coded authentication service. Actually, I'll copy this again and paste it here and say colon. The variable name, let's make it small h. So we have the hard-coded authentication service. Very, very long name. Now what we want to do is on the initialization of this component, we would want to check hard-coded authentication service. Before this, we need to say this dot hard-coded authentication service dot authenticate. Is that what we would want to find out? Nope. What we want to find out is user logged in. We want to find out if this user has logged in, and let's store this into a variable is user logged in, and this would be a boolean, and let's initialize it to false. And if user is logged in, then I would initialize, oops, what's the error? This dot. So this dot is user logged in is equal to this. So now I can use this component property in the view. So let's go to the menu.component.html, and over here I can say display this only if user has logged in. How can I say that? Think about it. How can I say that? Star ng if is equal to, so show this only if user is logged in. Is user logged in? Show this. To do's, show it only if user is logged in. Log out, show it if user is logged in. And login, show if user has not logged in, right? So I'm putting a not in here. Isn't it interesting? Let's see what would happen now. Let's refresh the page. If you see it now, 3 links are shown: home, to-dos, and logout. That's cool, right? So we are able to see all these 3 links. Let's remove this. Let's clear this out, and let's go back to the home page. You would see that these 3 links remain here. So even though it's not there in session storage, it's still visible. What's happening? Why are we able to see the links even though I have deleted this from session storage? The reason is because this menu component is initialized only once, right, at the load of the page. So once we load the page, we are not refreshing the content of this menu component. So the ng on in it will not be called. So whatever value was initially stored, that remains as it is. So if I now completely refresh the page, so I'm not just clicking the link, but I'm refreshing the page, you'd see that the links would, so now you'd see that login is the only one which is shown, because in session storage the username is not there, so only login is shown. And even if now in 28 minutes dummy and I log in, you'd see that only login menu item is shown, remaining are not shown, because even though the item is there in the session, so if you refresh the session storage, you'd see that the item is there, but it's not picked up by the menu because the menu is not being refreshed at all. The ng init on the menu component gets called only when the entire page gets refreshed. And the way we can avoid this is by directly calling this service. So we can go into the menu And instead of saying is user logged in, we would say this. Now let's see what would happen now. The page gets refreshed and you'd see that you'd see the links. And when you delete this, clear, and when you go back to the to-dos page, immediately you only see the login page because it's thinking that there is nothing in the session, so the user has logged out. One of the things you would have observed is even though user is logged out, we are still showing the to-dos page, we are still showing the welcome page and things like that. That's something which we would fix very soon. But the important thing for us is to make sure that the menu items are displayed according to whether a user is logged in or not. And that's what we were able to accomplish in this specific step. One of the things I will do is I'll quickly comment out the stuff which we did in here, which is not being used at all. So this specific thing in here is not being used. These two things are unused, so I'll just comment it out. So it's there for your future reference. In this step, we enable the menu items. We enable the top menu items based on whether user is logged in or not. One of the important things we keep doing throughout this course is we make mistakes. That's the only way we can emphasize things. Once you make a mistake and learn from it, you will never do it again. And that's the best way to learn. And that's exactly what we keep doing in this course. Until the next step, bye-bye.